Hi, good night. Welcome to Conversation with Rickford Burke. Share the link. You know the routine. Share the link. We're going to have some fun tonight. I'm not going to be very long tonight, but I really wanted to respond to BHARRAT JAGDEO and that clown critics, Guyanese critic. So share the live. You know the routine, man. Call up all your relatives and friends. Those of you who are in North America, Europe, Africa, the Caribbean, Guyana, wherever you are, I hope you're having a good time and that you will have a pleasant night. Hope everybody in Guyana, you guys are obeying all the COVID protocols. See a newscast tonight saying 28 persons died this week. 28 persons died this week. I'll talk about that a little. On Sunday, I plan to bring a doctor on my program at 8 o'clock to talk about COVID and how it's being managed in Guyana. Anyway, so that's the topic for next Sunday. But share the live. Get into all your Guyanese groups, your email groups, your WhatsApp groups, everywhere you are. Share this, all your social media platforms. Share the link. Those of you watching from Bartica, my hometown, share the link. I love to see my Bartica people, Essequibo people, and all of you on the West Coast, Linden, Berbice, share the link. Georgetown, share the link. The Hinterland, share the link to everybody. And I will be right back. If the technical guys are ready, I'll be right back in a couple of seconds. Good night. Welcome back. Again, keep sharing the link as we start the program. Keep sharing the link. Text me, let me know where you're watching from. I'm getting so many messages. Okay, guys, you guys can pause the messages until I get off the program. Let me see how many people are watching us there. Technical guy, how many people are watching us there? Share the link. Keep sharing the link. So far, I see just about 1,000. Keep sharing the link. Everybody share the link. 20 people here. Share the link. Sorry, each person here share the link to 20 persons. And let's get this program going. I want to start the program. Let me get some more people. Somebody's telling me, keep asking you guys to share the link. So keep sharing the link. Now, what I'll do first, before I get in the program, I want to share a clip of Barra JAGDEO sitting in the mud, in the trench, in the gutter with this fellow that looks like a cross between a hermaphrodite and a orangutan and a Neanderthal, something we don't know what he is, or what it is. So let me play this clip.
But the one in New York, what's his name again?
Rickford.
Rickford Burke.
We call him
yes.
Rickford Tight Pants Burke.
Tight and Burke, who, so I gather his organization makes quite a bit of money from these protests that he organizes through donations. So it may be a way of, he might have a clever way now, like the David Hines and the others, of living off protests or making protests a business. And it mightn't be so stupid. He might be a very clever person, because I gather, I don't know if he really is a lawyer or not, but I'd say, or he says he's a lawyer, but that's disputed. So you notice a few things. He doesn't act so stridently on some matters. When we had to deal with the Haitian situation, the smuggling of thousands of Haitians through Guyana, that we're sure would have ended up on some report globally of the IOM or some State Department report that Guyana facilitates smuggling of Haitians through its territories. That would have eventually been the report, because it was happening with frequency and over a long period. And you recall Felix saying, oh, he doesn't know where people are. But you had gangs operating in Guyana and in Haiti that were bringing people through for money. The people's passports were taken away from them. We found some cases abandoned here. So we had to address it. And what we did, we said, we're going to approach it like some of the Caribbean did. Most of the countries will return to a situation where you require a visa. Now, most of the countries in CARICOM have a visa. They're not racist, but we became racist because we wanted to end people smuggling. So I saw Rickford Burke organize a protest in Queens and invited the Haitians to join racism in Guyana, and Hakeem Jeffries and all of the others were there. And then it struck me as very ironic, and Rickford Burke saying, oh, we're the Democrats, and we run things in New York. And it struck me as ironic when the Biden administration started picking up Haitians at the border and flying them back to Haiti, just like that, who had sought asylum and who had gone through a long trip from Haiti through Guyana, up through Brazil, going up through Central America, reached the United States. They picked them up there, flew them back to Haiti. No, but, I wonder also what people like, since you mentioned Sherry Duncan, I wonder what from Haiti through Guyana up through Brazil, going up through Central America, reach the United States, they picked them up there, flew them back to Haiti directly, dropped them off there. Thousands. And so I was wondering how Hakim Jeffries and Rickford Burke, I don't hear them talk about that being racism. Is the Biden administration racist because they're Democrats? Nobody says anything about that any longer. So it happens over there. And these same guys who were pushing this, they were saying, oh, it's racism in Ghana.
Are you suggesting that their attitude towards your administration is one of convenience for them?
It's convenience, and it's a racist, and it's about money. And second, the same thing happened with vaccines. First, it was about us trying to get Afro-Guyanese. The PPP was trying to kill out Afro-Guyanese. That's how it started. And then President Biden started making vaccine mandates. The before us saying, if you're in the federal government and you don't get a vaccine, you get fired. And all of that. So that doesn't, what is done in the developed world wasn't racism. But they were protesting that in the early period. But you notice they've gone quiet on it, people like Burke, etc. Because the convenience of it all. And here in Guyana, we've had to say, oh, we had a more nuanced approach. We said vaccines or PCR tests. And our children, we said, encourage them to get the vaccine, but we're not making it compulsory for kids. They can go to school even if they're unvaccinated, because we wanted to get our children back into school. And look at the teachers union, you mentioned that right at the beginning. Coretta McDonald trying to
Folks, look at him. Look at him. He looks like a junkyard dog that's abandoned. Look at him. Take a good look at him. This dude is pathetic. Now, let me respond. I'm going to come backwards. First of all, he said that I was against vaccines and I was protesting in Guyana against vaccines. Keep sharing the link. Keep sharing the link. Share this link. Share this live. I was never against vaccines. So this guy is a total fool. Very stupid. He's not doing his research. He's supposed to be the vice president of a country and a former president. And he comes on TV and acts himself a jackass, a fool. I was never against vaccines. I got my shot in February. If you guys go through my Facebook page, you'll see that I promoted getting vaccines. I was never against vaccines. Every day I come on social media and I tell Guyanese to get vaccinated. However, I was saying get vaccinated with vaccines that have been approved by the World Health Organization or the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration of the United States. So he wants to create an argument with critics, right? He wants to feel that he has knowledge. He wants to feel empowered. And so he wants to perform like a buffoon before his sycophants, before his little racist audience. So he wants to sound like if he's criticizing Rickford Burke for protesting against vaccines. So, you know, he's lumping everybody into one basket. Why? Because we all black, right? Coretta McDonald, we all black people. Trumpism. So, and I have said that Guyana may regret using the Sputnik V vaccine from Russia. And why I was against that particular vaccine was, one, it was acquired allegedly by Barrett, JAGDEO, and the others in government, through some corrupt deal with a sheikh, who acquired those vaccines through some Russian businessman who was an ex-oil tycoon. So there are at least 2 or 3 middlemen here. There is no certificate of authentication from the manufacturer that what was shipped to Guyana was indeed the Sputnik vaccine that they manufactured. And there was no certification that the transportation of these vaccines to Guyana met the criteria prescribed by the manufacturers. And second, there was no verification or certification or even disclosure from the Ministry of Health that the storage of these vaccines were in accordance with the recommended recommendations of the manufacturer. So there's no paper trail from the manufacturer to the consumer of this product. So nobody knew, no one knew or knows where this vaccine came from. We don't even know if the vaccine they're putting into people's arms are still good. We're seeing reports of 10,000 spoiled or whatever it is. And then third, they made bad arrangements for this vaccine. So people would have received their first dose of this vaccine, you required 2. People would receive their first dose of this vaccine, and then they wouldn't know when the other dose will come. And then the government would admit, yeah, we ran out of doses of this, the second doses of the Sputnik vaccine. So all of this cloud of uncertainty, fear, and hesitancy surrounded the Sputnik V vaccine. On top of that, it was the Trinidadian Prime Minister who had announced to the Guyanese people, we have been saying it all the time, but it was not getting press coverage because the press, 90% of the press in Guyana are East Indian ethnic supporters of the PPP. Keep sharing the link. Keep everybody here share the link. So it was the Trinidadian Prime Minister who announced that the vaccine was not approved by the WHO and that he, unlike Guyana, would not give his people that. And then all of our admonitions and queries became justifiable when the world unanimously announced that the Russian Sputnik V vaccine is not recognized as a vaccine. It therefore means all those thousands of people in Guyana who were injected with that thing that the government is telling us is the Sputnik V vaccine cannot travel unless they have another vaccine. So it's they're harming their body further by putting this other vaccine or a real vaccine into their system. And I noticed that the CDC is recommending for those people, they should get the one-shot Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So he has the balls, the gall, to criticize us, criticize me, for telling people not to get the Sputnik vaccine. But he doesn't have the gall to tell the people in Guyana that Sputnik V vaccine that they got through corrupt means, who I'm told he and other people could have possibly gotten kickbacks. He doesn't have the gall to tell those people that those vaccines that they received are not recognized by the international community. And Russia did apply to the World Health Organization to get the vaccine approved. And it was rejected because of insufficient research, lack of information from the Russians. But he is bothered about us telling people about the truth, telling people the truth about that vaccine. So he's attacking me. He's obviously uninformed and ignorant, because I have been telling people get the vaccine. As a matter of fact, the PPP even extracted a video of me telling people get the vaccine, but don't get the Sputnik V vaccine because it is not approved by the World Health Organization and it is not recognized internationally. They took that out and they made an ad saying Rickford Burke said to get the vaccine. Obviously, he's ignorant of that, just like he's ignorant of so many other things, and he just bluffs his way. And because he doesn't get any serious challenge, he believes he's a star. He believes he's the most ruthless politician in Guyana. Well, he ain't seen ruthlessness yet. He ain't seen ruthlessness yet. There are people who could be more ruthless than he is. And I'm one of them. I could be more ruthless than he is. Keep sharing the link. Keep sharing the link. So he's lying about the vaccine issue. Complete ignorance he's talking there. Nonsense. But he could sit there because he's not being fact-checked by the other buffoon. And like I said before, you know, in the Bible days, the Philistine Samson used the jawbone of an ass to slay the Philistines. The PPP has reinvented the Bible tradition of using the jawbone of an ass to slay their enemies. And that's who CRITIC is. Like I said, he's somewhere in transition between a orangutan or Muffadite, you know, whoever he is. I don't know. He's still ill looking. But it's telling that a former president, so-called installed vice president of a country, is sitting down for an interview with such an odious figure. He is wallowing like a pig in the mess and the perniciousness that that person produces. Imagine he's sitting down there discussing who wears tight pants. And he's responsible for the oil and gas industry. Development matters with regard to the country. And he's sitting down for an interview with a clown, sitting like he's in a circus, looking like an abandoned junkyard dog, talking about who got on the tight pants. Trash. Trash. But I want to move on from the vaccine issue to the Haitian issue. Now, he says the congressman is engaged in racism. I got to pause. BHARRAT JAGDEO. Well, you see, what he wants to do is call the congressman's name as often as possible in the most nasty, odious context and discussion, so as to give the perception that he's drawing in the congressman in his political odiousness. BHARRAT JAGDEO is not even fit to flush the congressman's toilet or to wipe his behind. He's not even fit to do that. But he wants to call the man racist because the man went to a rally in Brooklyn, the anti-racism rally in Brooklyn, and said that the United States government would not tolerate racism, racial injustice, racial violence, bigotry, intolerance, and racial injustice from any country in the world. That's all the man said. And he said, time's up for the US ambassador. She must be removed. That's all the man said. He spoke for 3 minutes. And they're still reeling and smarting because they felt rebuked, because they were guilty of racism. They are guilty of racism. So he decides that he's going to go consult the congressman. But I wish him well, because what they're doing is systematically undermining Guyana-US relations. And they feel because they have Sarah Lynch in their pocket, the US ambassador Sarah Lynch in their pocket, that they could do these things. But I wonder, when she's removed from there, what will they do? And the current head of the Western Hemisphere Affairs Division at the State Department is a black man who understands Barrett Jagdeo's racism, who knows the history of the PPP from the 90s with the death squad killings and the racism, and who knows how to deal with racist regimes like Miramar and so on. So we're going to have some fun. And I'm pretty sure he's going to be very impressed with the so-called vice president of an installed regime that is aspiring to be as racist as possible, a regime that is the most brutally racist and violently oppressive regime in the hemisphere. I'm sure he's going to be the architect of that apartheid regime. I'm sure he would be the Assistant Secretary of State for the Western Hemisphere Division, who is an African-American. I'm sure he's going to be very impressed with Barrett Jagdeo attacking the congressman as a racist for calling out racism. I'm sure that he's going to be impressed with Barrett Jagdeo clothing himself with the KKK hood and aspiring to be the KKK Grand Wizard of Guyana. I'm sure the State Department would be impressed. And we're ready to turn up the heat. We're ready to turn up the heat. So he claims, remember how ignorant he is with regard to the vaccine and how he was fabricating those arguments that I argued against vaccine mandate in Guyana, but I support it here because Biden do it and I'm a Democrat. Total clown. He's now fabricating stuff. He said, I organized a protest in Queens that the congressman attended. Never did. I never organized a protest in Queens that the congressman attended, or that Haitians attended. I organized a protest in Queens against Anil Nandlal, when he ran and hide. But I've never organized a protest in Queens where Haitians attended and the congressman attended and other elected officials, as alleged by Jagdeo. Gore, Guyanese Organizations Against Racism, which comprises 25 organizations, including CGID, and Black Lives Matter, did have a rally, anti-racism rally in Brooklyn. On August 15th, we did have that rally in Brooklyn, when all the members of parliament came, regional chairman, regional vice chairman, the mayor, everybody came. That was in Brooklyn. That was epic. Over 10,000 people came out to protest PPP racism, including some of their own East Indian supporters in Queens. But that is a rally where the congressman said clearly, injustice in any one place is injustice everywhere. He also said, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. He also said that the US government, as I said earlier, the US government will not tolerate racism, racial injustice, racial bigotry, intolerance, racial injustice anywhere in the world. And that's when Mark Phillips was told to issue a statement, and the president issued a statement, and JAGDEO jumped in and made a statement, and Gail Teixeira wrote an epistle, which we responding to will be released on Sunday. We will release our response to Gail Teixeira on Sunday. She wrote a letter allegedly to the Congress members, all 435 members of Congress, or how many members of Congress there are. So JAGDEO, said that at that rally, we were engaged in racism. The congressman in particular, because critics asked him, as you just heard, if he thinks that we are selective or whatever it is in what we do. And he said, no, he said, yes, it's racism. Because he said, Jeffrey spoke there and Burke, it's racism. He's calling the congressman a racist. And why he's calling the congressman a racist is because the congressman is black and they don't have respect for black people. If a white man like Albino Cerise, well, he's Spanish, but he looks white, had said that, JAGDEO would have been quiet. If Tom Swazi or Congressman Rice or Anita Lowy or somebody from the New York delegation who's white had said that, Barry JAGDEO would have been quiet. If Sarah Lynch had said that, Barry JAGDEO would have been sitting like a monkey with his tail between his foot, quiet. But no, they don't have respect for black people. And he wants to show it. He wants to be odious when he discusses the congressman. He wants to be gutterish. He wants to behave like a border market woman. And by the way, he called Sherrod earlier in another clip in that video, he called Sherrod Duncan a girl. I'm gonna come back to that. Barry JAGDEO calling people a girl. Barry JAGDEO. So he said that me in particular, he's obsessed with me. And by the way, you notice he said, oh, that one in New York, he pretends that he doesn't know my name. So as to set critics up to make some derogatory remarks about me. He taught me in school. He has been in New York during the UN General Assembly meeting when he and the president were here, riffing up the place, and him ejaculating with his orgasms in the press conference. They were calling my name all over. In private meetings, everywhere they go, they were complaining about Rickford Burke. But all of a sudden, he's pretending not to know my name. I wonder what that one in New York. And the critics come, oh yeah, Tyke Fansburg. He's like, yeah, Tyke Fansburg. He said that I called them racist because they stopped Haitians from coming to the country and imposed subsequently after they banned Haitians. So as a safe phase, they came back and imposed a visa requirement, and they're not issuing visas to any of the Haitians. So the ban is still in effect. He said that I said, me and Jeffries called them racists. Congressman Jeffries never discussed anything but Haitians. Congressman Jeffries never said the PP government is racist. I said so. I said that. But he wants to be odious, so he's linking that to the congressman. He went on to say that we said they were racist when they took that action against the Haitians. But now the Biden administration is sending back the Haitian migrants who've assembled in Texas, who've come across the border after that journey from Haiti. We are quiet. And that I had said, we're Democrats and we run things in New York City, but we're quiet because the Democratic administration is doing it. He's such a buffoon. He's ignorant. He's a junkyard dog, abandoned, chewing on trash. He's like the equivalent of white trash. There's a word that we would call that something trash. I'm gonna leave it for your imagination. Because, first of all, we were the first, CGID was the first organization. And if you go back and check CGID's page, check my Facebook page, we were the first to come on the block to criticize the Biden administration's handling of the Haitians. We called for the Border Patrol officers who were seen on horses to be fired and prosecuted for violating the human and civil rights of the Haitians. We wrote a letter to the Biden administration about that. It's all over the press in New York. I have been on radio stations and on TV here talking about that. That clown, BHARRAT JAGDEO, who's just a bluff, who has no information whatsoever, just goes as a vice president and talk nonsense in a gutter show. He has no clue what he's talking about. And everybody knows how passionate I am about these human rights issues with regard to Haitians. Because I married a Haitian. I was married to a Haitian. So BHARRAT JAGDEO doesn't know what he's talking about. And then he said Congressman Jeffries is quiet, further revealing his ignorance. Because Congressman Hakeem Jeffries has been all over the press as the face of the Democratic Party, condemning the treatment of the Haitians. As a matter of fact, in some of the shows on CNN and MSNBC, some of the intros for the shows now, over the last week, we've seen him saying those famous words in Meet the Press: the Border Patrol is out of control with regard to the treatment of the Haitians. BHARRAT JAGDEO doesn't know that. He didn't take the time to do his research. He's just bluffing his way like he's always been doing, until now when he's called out by people like myself, he's upset. But he's an ignorant bluff. He doesn't have facts. He just talks nonsense and gossips. The congressman is quiet on Haitians. Every Congress member from the New York delegation and others around the country, Florida, have been talking about the treatment of the Haitians. As a matter of fact, it is because of the criticism from people like myself and members of Congress like Congressman Jeffries that the Biden administration has now adjusted their Haitian policy. And they're now granting them asylum and temporary protective status. As a matter of fact, BHARRAT JAGDEO, some of those migrants arrived in Guyana, in New York this week. And I was there with the Haitian council members, Farah Lewis and Rita Joseph. Well, Rita Joseph is coming in now as a new council member for the 40th district. Council member Farah Lewis, who was at the march, the rally, the anti-racism rally. She's from the 45th district, which is Mill Basin, Midwood, East Flatbush. We were sitting there planning and strategizing how to get clothing, accommodation, lodging, food for these Haitian migrants. I was the one making the calls to some of the churches to get assistance. And BHARRAT JAGDEO, that abandoned looking junkyard dog sitting with critics, who looks like an abandoned hermaphrodite or orangutan or something, telling me about my advocacy for my people. The epitome of ignorance and incompetence. He's a vice president. Do your research. Don't get on critics and talk nonsense. And the reason why he does go on critics is because he's not fact-checked. Even their own media would probably ask more sensible questions than what the orangutan can ask. But the problem with BHARRAT JAGDEO was that he's still smarting from the rebuke he felt they received from the congressman. And the fact that the congressman slammed the Trump administration for attempting to interfere in elections in a partisan way to help the people get into power. And he's smarting from the fact that the congressman has slammed the ambassador and called for her removal. Because he knows when the ambassador goes, their baby party is over. And the dude got the balls to question. You see, he wants to say these things, nasty things about people, so that his sycophants, so that his extremist fan base can pick them up and run with them as memes or video clips to attack people. But we could do the same thing. I believe in an eye for an eye when it comes to the PPP. We can do the same thing. And they're upset because we embarrassed them. He and the president at the UN. They can't read, they can't give a speech, they can't pronounce words, they're ignorant. And they're out there representing our country. They look like trash. PPP trash. Questioning my education now. I mean, this is a man who calls himself Dr. JAGDEO who never really earned a doctorate. BHARRAT JAGDEO never went to school for no doctorate. He went to Patrice Lumumba University in Russia, spent a couple of years and come back with a diploma that is equivalent to a master's, he says, and posing as an international economist or economic development economic expert. And calling himself champion of the earth. Calls himself Dr. JAGDEO. He never earned a doctorate. Never. They got some university in India to give him an honorary doctorate. Who uses doctor somebody for an honorary doctorate? You don't do no research. You don't publish no dissertation. You don't write no publications. Nothing. And you run around the place posing yourself a doctor. And you questioning people's qualification. When you, BHARRAT JAGDEO, I know you're looking, choose a man to be president of Guyana with 19 fraud charges, a criminal, so as not to embarrass the country. The chief magistrate had to drop the charges when it was installed under the rubric of presidential immunity. But I thought that was a bad decision. With as much respect I have for the chief magistrate, because the Constitution says that the president shouldn't go to court or be involved in any criminal or civil matter during the time of his presidency, so that matter should have paused and continue after the presidency, he vacates the presidency. But it's Guyana. And then the man that he brought to the UN and put there to sit on the chair as president, he got no first degree, claims that he went to a university that doesn't exist, forged documents to get admitted into a master's program, forged your way through that master's program, get a certificate that is questionable, and then use that fraudulent certificate from the two universities below, the one in Haifa and the one in India, to apply for a PhD program at UE. So the PhD fake. But at least the professor and the friends who wrote his papers, his dissertations, and so on, allegedly, they did him a favor. At least he kind of earned something because he produced what is required to complete the program, to graduate. JAGDEO had none of that. Bharat Jagdeo got an honorary doctorate from some university in India that has no international prominence anyway. And he's calling himself Dr. Jagdeo. Give me a break. And he wants to question people's qualifications because he just wants to be odious. But I can handle it. If I have to chase him to the pits of hell, I'm going to do that. I will give him hell. Straight to the pits of hell, I run him. And if you want a war, which is what they seem to be angling for, we could have a war. Any day, place, and time, we're going to have a war. And here we're talking about firepower they have. You don't got no firepower. Other people got more firepower than any firepower you could ever have. So if you want to use firepower, we're going to have firepower for firepower. Let's have a war. That's what y'all want in the country. And then he said, oh, people in New York threatened to burn down Georgetown. Same nonsense that Irfin Ali has been saying. We threatened to burn down Georgetown at a rally. And they're saying that because one of the Black Lives Matter leaders that spoke was telling the audience about his experience during the George Floyd protests, some of which he led in Minnesota. This young man led protests in Minnesota. He led the protests, some of the protests in New York. To the extent where he was honored and recognized by the New York Times as one of the most potent and accomplished and effective youth advocates in America. The foremost in New York City. And they want to rumble with he. He was leading the protests by the Barclays Center, Atlantic and Flatbush, when the police ran those two police vehicles into the crowd. And today those officers are being prosecuted. And through his advocacy, they had to remove the commanding officer from two precincts, 73rd and 75th, through his advocacy. And he has been on my program before. He's been at every protest we have. He's there because he's African American, but he's committed to the cause of justice for the Caribbean people and for Guyanese. And he hates racists. That's why the PPP is attacking him. But he's about to become their worst nightmare, because I'm sure he's going to mobilize his people and come out when the installed prime minister comes. But Jagdeo said he's going to seek international help because this thing has a pattern. Listen, when the Ministry of Finance burned down, it was the PPP burned them down to destroy records. When the Ministry of Health was burnt down, it was the PPP who burned it down to destroy records with regard to Roger Can, which they were not keeping at the Home Affairs Ministry, they were keeping at the Ministry of Health, because it was the Minister of Health who they used as the liaison to get Roger Can's gang to import equipment, intelligence spy equipment that military organizations use. And they took that equipment and they were using it, using the triangulation technology to locate people and track them and kill them. That's what the death squad was doing, using that equipment. And all of that information was being headquartered in the Ministry of Health, where you least expect it. It was Ramsamy, who was then the Minister of Health, who wrote the letter on behalf of the government, giving Roger Can permission to import that equipment, because you can't purchase and sell it unless you're an agent of a government. That information came out in the trial of Roger Can in New York. So Jagdeo is now saying he's going to, like the others, they're going to seek international help to see if there was a connection between what Chris was saying and what people said, and the fire break down. Now imagine that, right? It's either one or two things. Somebody was heavenly inspired by what somebody didn't say in New York and became filled with a revolutionary spirit and marched into break down briskly as a valiant, as a brave soldier. Went upstairs on the second floor, which the fire department said the fire started. Where the fire department said the fire started. Gathered some documents and threw some flammable substance and just lit the whole office afire and walked out back briskly and salute like a brave soldier and disappeared into the horizons. That's what happened. That's what PP is telling us. Just like they're telling us, a prisoner from ACNU was in the jail and he was inspired by ACNU, David Granger, Avi Norton, and everybody else. And so he decided to tear off a piece of sponge and he tied it with a wire that doesn't exist. And then he got a lighter and he lit it and he let it down a ventilation hole. And somehow it ended up in an office with papers right below the jail. And by the way, below the jail is another jail. And the fire started. When in fact the jail is a couple of feet away from the main building. And the jail is a concrete structure that still remains today. But the PPP and their agents in the Guyana Police Force want us to believe that some young prisoner, inspired by ACNU, got a piece of sponge from a mattress that the fire service says does not exist, and tied it with a piece of wire that the fire service says did not exist, and lit it. Now, the fire service did say, I think, that they found fragments of a lighter. There's a police station with hundreds of policemen who smoking. I am sure that those hundreds of policemen that work in Brigham did not have time to run and retrieve their lighters before they exited hurriedly the Brigham police station. But this is the trash where JAGDEO and the PPP cabal have been feeding the Guyanese people. They have no respect for the intelligence of Guyanese. None. Because they're telling us that this man burned down the prison. And the man supposedly started, he burned down the police station. The man supposedly started this inferno by throwing this piece of sponge down a hole where it would not have any oxygen to survive. A fire will have oxygen to breathe. And it fell on papers and it caught the whole station on fire. Poppycock. Poppycock. This is what these people are telling Guyanese. They have no respect for Guyanese, none. Just like they're telling Guyanese that them boys that they arrested killed Alexander Joel Henry because they wanted to end the story. They're so barefaced, disgraceful. So they're going to write the FBI to ask the FBI to investigate us for causing the fire. Well, we welcome that investigation. Could anybody tell me when the letter going to reach the FBI? Because I'm under my bed shivering because I don't want to lose my sandwich. I don't want the FBI to take away my dinner. The truth is, they hurriedly come up with this cockamamie strategy that because they're getting the most pressure from the diaspora, in order to ease the pressure and intimidate us, they're going to blame us for the fire. And then they're going to say they're going to write the FBI. Well, write the FBI. What I want you all to do is not only to write the FBI and ask the FBI to investigate. People who went to the rally. I want you all to invite the FBI to come to Guyana and investigate the fire. I bet you they wouldn't do that. They would never invite the FBI to come to Guyana to investigate that fire because they know the FBI would find the truth. And the truth is, even before the fire was completely quelled, outed, they started to deliberately remove the evidence by removing debris. That's what they did. Even before the fire department could have started their investigation, they started to remove debris. I don't know why the station burned down. It's unfortunate. It's a national asset. It provides a service to the people. It should not have happened. And then you have the incompetent fire department that contributed 50% of the cause of that fire through inaction and incompetence. And like I mentioned the other day, the fire chief, Mr. Calamity Edu, or Edo, was placed there specifically to limit Black people in the fire service, not to promote people. Within months of him being placed there by the PP government, he struck down the promotion of 19 Black people and promoted 6 or 8 East Indians, because that is the government's policy, to demote Black people, to make sure that they're not promoted, to keep them down at on the lowest levels of whatever service they're in, and promote East Indians. They want to build an apartheid state, an ethnocracy. And those 9 officers objected, went to court. And even with that, he was so obstinate and obdurate that he refused. They had to file criminal charges against him. And he's before the courts now with facing criminal charges for which he's on $10,000 bail. But they think they can intimidate us by talking about they're going to right to get international help. But bring it on, man. Bring on the international help. Bring the investigation. Let us see. Let us see where the fire came from. Let us see if Black Lives Matter started the fire here. And the thing about it is that he is playing the Trump racist card. Remember, Trump was attacking Black Lives Matter and saying that they're burning things? That's what JAGDEO is doing now. That's what the PUP is doing. They're so irrational, dumb, and stupid that they think people are going to buy that nonsense all the way in Guyana. That Black Lives Matter people, who Trump accused of burning buildings, caused the fire. So all the fire that you saw burning in the United States, JAGDEO was saying those same people went to Guyana and burned down Breakdown Police Station. How powerful. How powerful. So all in all, I wanted to make sure I give that comprehensive response to the junkyard dog. That's who he is. He's just a plain common yard dog. Not even a guard dog, a yard dog. Such an odious dog. And wants to come and attack people personally. Sitting with a person who can't read, who can't write, who can't spell, who look and smell funky, who dwells among the most odious places in politics. I think people must always challenge Barra JAGDEO. He has no superior intellect. He's a clown, he's a dunce. If you challenge him, he has no ideas. And he's now projecting that it's the PNC and APNU and the APNU coalition that's racist. Who can be more racist than the PPP? Who burned Black villages and killed all Black people in the 60s during the race war? And then they came in the 90s again and formed death squads. Every time the PPP is in power, they kill Black people. And we have been docile all the time and not respond. But they can't try it with this generation. That's why they're upset, because we're calling them out. And they know that we're going to mobilize the people to treat them exactly the same way that they treat Black people. And the reason why we're saying this is because we know the police is the one acting on their behalf and not providing service and protection for the people. And the people are going to respond this time. So y'all come with your nonsense. come and try to kill out black people and burn down their buildings again. And we're going to give you all the response. The response that the slaves, our ancestors, give to the slave masters. That's the response we're going to give you all. And that's the message I want to leave for them tonight. Think on it. Go and study it. Write the FBI and tell the FBI that Rickford Burke says that when you all start to kill out black people, it's indiscriminately, and burn our homes and try to take away our businesses or our land, we're going to give you all the slave response. We're going to give you all the slave response. We're ready to war. Whenever you are ready to war, we're ready to war. That's it. That's how you got to deal with the PPP. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. I want to wish everybody a safe weekend. For those of you in Guyana, make sure you obey the COVID regulations. I just saw on Bixby News that 28 people alone died this week from COVID. 28 people. You have to assume personal responsibility for yourself and your family. Get vaccinated with the vaccines that are approved by the World Health Organization and the FDA. Don't take no Sputnik V vaccine, because if you take the Sputnik V, you got to take another vaccine again if you want to travel internationally. Maintain social distancing. Stay home if possible. Sanitize or wash your hands as often as possible. Save your life, save the lives of family. I lost a cousin to COVID in Guyana within the last 2 weeks. And that hurts. That hurts. So good night, everybody. Good night, everybody. Stay woke, stay revolutionary, and be prepared to fight these people at all costs. Have a good night.